Well, welcome to the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. It is Thursday, 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and at whatever time that translates to where you are, or no time at all, because it's when you see this if you're not watching us live. So we want to welcome you. That is Robert Hilliard. He is an executive coach extraordinaire, and I'm Whitnie Wiley. I am the queen of shift. And so we are going to be talking today about the Super Bowl, or rather some leadership lessons that we gained from the Super Bowl. So we were talking before we went live. I thought it was one of the best Super Bowls, entertainment wise. You were talking about the drama, the intrigue that was part of it. There was, there were comebacks and injuries that created all kinds of angst, I'm sure, for the fans. I wasn't rooting for either team. I was just looking for a fun game. And so I got what I was looking for. I thought the commercials were great. That isn't always the case. And I thought this halftime show was great, which isn't always the case either.
I think, first of all, I want to thank you for making me work during the Super Bowl. But it was fun work. I was like, I got to work. I usually watch the Super Bowl purely for entertainment because my team is seldom there. I'm a Giants fan. So I just usually watch it purely for... But what ends up happening is it happens every year. I end up rooting for somebody, even though I'm like, I don't care. And I'm like, yeah, I want them to win. And it happened this year too. So I'll tell you more about that later.
Yeah, I didn't care who won. We went and watched it with some friends. Quiet, sort of subdued Super Bowl party, but it was great. So and honestly, you said I made you work. I forgot I was supposed to be doing this for the game. So I had to go back into, it's like, okay, what in the game were some leadership lessons that were there? Because I was all wrapped up in what was going on and totally forgot that I had a goal. I had a job to do. I had work to do and totally forgot. But the good news is that I did come up with some lessons. Robert has some lessons. We haven't compared notes. We haven't talked about what each other saw in it, except that I think Robert's is more specific to people. Mine is more general. So it should make for an interesting conversation. So the way I thought we would do this is you do one, I'll do one. You'll do one, I'll do one, until we run out of either things to talk about or time.
Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be things to talk about. So let me start with how I decided where I was going to go with this. Because my team was not involved in the Super Bowl. You got to chuckle out of that. But so I said, okay, I'm going to focus on the team whose player wins the Walter Payton Man of the Year.
Okay.
So that was Andrew Whitworth. So I said, okay, I'm going to take all of my lessons from the Rams because that will keep me focused. It'll keep me looking for things instead of going, okay, what's going on over here? I won't be so scatterbrained. So that helped keep me focused. So
interesting. I like it. But you know what? That's very you. I'll say that methodical and thoughtful, and so I like it.
Yeah, that's me. That I'm gonna come up with some kind of system. So Andrew Whitworth was the Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, and that is given to somebody who has exhibited excellence on and off the field. It's in every case, it's somebody who gives back to the community. So right there you have servant leadership. And he has a foundation that focuses on 3 social issues. 1, homelessness. The other is food insecurity. And the third is education inequity.
Okay.
And through his foundation, he's given out over $500,000 worth of scholarships and resources to people and organizations engaged in education. I thought that was fantastic. So right there, showing some of the pillars of servant leadership, stewardship, empathy, communication, all those things right there. Community is another pillar of servant leadership. So, and then that got me to do some more research. As you know, I love doing research. So I did more research on Andrew Whitworth. And I found out that last year, he used to be a Cincinnati Bengal, by the way. But and this ties into the story that last year when they were playing another team, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, a player from that team came up to him after the game and wanted to talk to him. He didn't recognize the person. It had been one of the kids that he mentored.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When he was in Cincinnati, he was on Cincinnati, and he was part of the Boys and Girls Club of America. So he would go and volunteer with them. And that player's name was Derek Barnes, who plays for the Detroit Lions. And so it was a great way of, brought some principles actually from transformational leadership, idealized influence, right? Walking the talk, being an example, being ethical, and inspirational motivation, connecting to the values of others through your values as well, and individual consideration. So helping others achieve, their dreams and their goals. So I thought this was, really, that was a really great example and an easy one for me to follow. So I was really, really grateful that I chose that system.
I like that. That's very cool. And I like that your approach of picking, things that are based on people, specifically things that they're doing. I love you tying it into servant leadership, one of my favorite, if not favorite, leadership philosophy. So my first one is about planning and being flexible, right? And each team has a goal. Each team, there's a vision for how the coach has laid out how it wants the team to do its part. And of course, both teams want to win, but there's an approach that's different. And so each team has a plan. There are things that each team is specifically good at, right? Whether it's a running game or the throwing game, things like that. But what we know about the football game, about the Super Bowl, football, sports in general, life in general, and certainly work, is that things do not go according to plan. And what do you do when your plan isn't working? And so one of the things that, happens play after play is that you set off with a play. You've got something in mind, whether it's a throw downfield or a short throw or a run, right? Is that you're trying to do something in particular. The play is set up to go in a particular way, and there are obstacles. The defense is your obstacle, right? And it's in the way. And what happens when what you plan doesn't work out? So you end up with things like runs where your running back or somebody, tailbacks or whatever the position titles are, end up zigging and zagging, right? Or you intended to throw a short pass and you've got the line rushing at you and end up throwing a long pass, or vice versa, whatever that is. The importance of having a vision, and this is something that we've talked about frequently here on the State of Leadership, is that you have to have a vision. You have to have your team buy into that vision, and then you create a plan off of that. And once you have a plan, it's really important to understand that you've got to be flexible, because things are not always going to go your way. And one of the things that happens in organizations all the time is that what you had planned didn't go as planned. And what do? How do you adapt? Can you pivot, right? We've spent the last 2 years talking about pivots. Can you pivot? Can you do it a different way? If your running game isn't working, can you go to your throwing game? If your throwing game isn't working, can you go to your running game? And one of the things that happened was that he's a tight end, a wide receiver, right? Odell Beckham Jr. Gets injured. And he scored the first touchdown for the Rams. And he's someone that the quarterback was passing to. a lot and he's injured, and then you've got to have a backup plan. And they went to that. That plan actually ended up being what won the game for them in the end. So have a backup plan. Be okay with things not working out the way you planned. And some of the unfortunate things that happen in organizations when things don't go as planned, people get blamed, right? People get scapegoated. And instead of expending that energy worrying about that, what's your backup plan? What are you going to do next? How are you going to continue moving forward when what you had planned didn't quite work out? So, and some of that will tie into my second one, but I'm done with that for now.
Okay, very good. Those were great points. My second one came from Matthew Stafford. So he's the quarterback of the Rams. And so one of the things that I wanted to point out as a leader, of course, the quarterback is the leader. You know, they're the coach on the field. They're the field general.
Yep.
So it makes sense that he would be in the mix. So leading by example, especially staying focused on the goal when things are not going your way. I thought that was really important. And there's some other things how this tied into that. And this ties into exactly what you're saying, strategy adaptation. And I looked at this, like say the Rams are an organization, which they are, but say, you know, they're a traditional organization. And we always talk about external forces that are always exerting pressure on your strategy, having that ability to adapt your strategy for the unplanned, unexpected, and still attain your goal. That was really evident at, you know, I was like, wow, this is a great example of that, and something that I'm going to bring up when we talk about strategy at some other point. The last one is communication. We know that quarterbacks have to communicate, but of course we say like communicating, you hear them communicating, you hear them calling audibles all the time. However, what I want to point out is communicating through your body language and your attitude. Really important, because remember, emotions are contagious. When they got the first lead and then they lost it, if he would have had slumped shoulders and was, you know, swearing and, you know, throwing things, that would have radiated out. But that didn't happen. At least I didn't see that happen. What I saw was a lot of positive body language, a lot of positive attitude exhibited on the field toward the other players. That carried over, and that ended up helping them stay focused on their goal.
Absolutely. I love that piece about, you know, staying focused. And it can be easy when things are not going your way to, like I said, shift, to place blame elsewhere. That's not the role of a leader. That it doesn't help, right? There's a time for dissecting postmortems and figuring out what didn't go right and how you can improve on that. But when you're right there in the trenches, that's not the time for that. That is not the time for that. And you have to just keep moving. Go
I want to bring up something else too. And I didn't really think about that until you just said that. There was a point where I think it was an interception that, you know, their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, threw a pass and it was intercepted by other team. And the receiver went like this. That's my fault. And I thought that was amazing, because you usually see people, you know, getting mad and trying to blame other people. You know,
that's the one where he popped the ball into the air instead of knocking it down.
Yeah, I believe so. And the guy went like, my fault, right?
Yeah.
And you know, had that been Dan Marino would have been pointing at somebody and saying that was, but that didn't happen. So.
Yeah, you know, it's important, and it leads into my next point, which is 1st and 10, right? That your goal you know, you've got this larger goal of winning, and then you've got these sub goals, and you've got strategies for the things that you're doing and the reason why you're doing this, and why you're running this play as opposed to something else, and you know, it's like all this stuff that has to be calculated and recalculated on the fly in order to give yourself the best chance. But in football, as much as your goal is to get into the end zone, 1st and goal, 1st and 10 is like your continual goal, right?
Right.
And organizations, teams have to have a continuous goal. You've got the big picture thing that you're shooting for, but the way you get there isn't long bombs every single time. It is not winning out the box. You can't win the football game, right? At 14 minutes and 32 seconds into the first quarter, right? It's an hour-long game. And so that means you have to keep moving. And if you don't keep moving, right? And sometimes that takes baby steps. The likelihood that every time you get the ball back from the other side, you're going to throw a touchdown that goes 100 yards or 80 yards, right? Usually from the 20-yard line to the end zone is probably not going to happen.
Probably.
I don't think I've ever seen a game where that happened. So what happens is you're continuously moving baby step by baby step. 1st and 10, you're running 2 yards, 3-yard plays, 9-yard plays, throwing short passes, long passes. There are these combinations of things that are happening. And it's the same thing for your team. You're going to have to find a way to continuously keep the ball moving for a lot of reasons. One is for the sanity of your team members. For success breeds success. And the more you are winning, little wins, celebrating those wins, it gives you the momentum to keep moving. It's disheartening. And, in another sport, I was talking with someone last week about teams that are basketball in particular, teams that are not doing well. And I heard someone quote someone, and I can't think of who the quote was. I want to say it was Pat Riley, but it could have been someone else. That there's winning and there's misery, right? Either you're winning or you're miserable. The lose when you are on a team that is losing and continue, like winning one game every 20 games or something like that, where it starts to wear on you. If you are on a team that has a losing mentality, you play like a loser, right? And the teams that are used to winning or that have built a culture of winning, they play different. You can watch them as they just play different. They show up different and they play different. And so it's no different for your team. And when you celebrate the little wins within the bigger goal that you have, it helps your team members to build that winning mentality, to build that culture of winning. And so 1st and 10 becomes very important. What are things that we can do step by step that get us to the next place so that we can see that we've got momentum and we've got another shot, right? If you don't get the first down, you turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. In your business, if you don't get the first down, whatever that is in your business, there's another business, right? There's a competitor waiting to take over. And so what can you do to keep moving your team, moving the ball forward, moving your team forward, moving your organization forward so that you have another opportunity to do what it is you're trying to do?
I love that, the winning and misery, right? And one of the things I really like about what you said, a culture of winning, right? A culture of winning. And I think that people don't focus a lot or enough, I should say, on the culture of the team. What kind of culture do you want your team to have? It's not just a bunch of people. That's a group. That's not a team. But when you talk about culture, you're talking about building a team.
Yeah.
Having that common focus, having those ground rules, how the team's going to operate. And I think that's, how you deal with failures. That is huge.
Absolutely. Right. Because of course, everyone's goal is to execute well. Right. Sure. You want to implement, you've got a plan, you want to implement it well. It's not going to always work out the way that you want it. We talked about that already. So what do? You just keep taking one more step. And sometimes you end up further back than you started. How are you going to embrace that? What are you going to do next? What's your next step? What's your next plan? If you have a setback, right?
Mhm.
It's not just that you're stopped right here. Sometimes there's a setback. And what are you going to do? And if you keep your mind focused on what's the next little goal, the next hurdle we can get over, instead of looking always to the end, what's the next thing that we can do that will help us to realize we're making progress? It's about progress, not perfection, right? We hear that all the time. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep getting up and keep making efforts to move forward.
Yeah, those are great points. Great points. Are you ready for mine? My last
I
one?
am.
Okay. My last one is Aaron Donald, who is, one of the greatest defensive
Number
tackles.
99.
Yeah, one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time. So had to make the list for a couple of different reasons, because no one really focuses on the defense until they have a big play, like he made that great sack with 39 seconds left, right? So here's what I picked up from him: focus. Constantly focused on that offense, looking for the opportunity. Great example of expert power. We don't talk about influence enough. Expert power, that's the influence that he has. And when you have expert power and you bring that forward and other people see that, they want to emulate that, and they want to look at what it took for you to have that kind of expert power. And I dug into that, as you know I would, and I found out that he works super hard in practice, super hard working on those technical aspects of his game so that he can show up and be ready on game day and exert, all that pressure against the offense that he's known for. So really expert power. One of the things that came up, I really was thinking about this, weighing opportunity versus risk and seizing that moment. That was huge. And that's how he was able to get that sack, that really just ended the game for Cincinnati, was, really doing that. Of course, that happens in a blink of an eye, split second, but that comes through practice, and leaders need to practice too. A lot of times leaders think that they're just going to show up to the job with their great title, and that makes them a leader. That doesn't make your title does not make you a leader. It's those things, being able to exert expert power, or when you're just using your position. That's the weakest kind of power as far as I'm concerned, because there are people that really don't care. Your title does not stop a bullet. It doesn't. I hate to say it like that, but no one's going to go, oh wait, that guy's a CEO. That guy. They don't think like that.
Right.
That's not going to do that for you. It really doesn't carry. But expert power, people seeing that you can really do what you set out to do and what you say, that really increases your influence on other people who want to emulate you. So that was one thing, weighing that, seizing those opportunities. I thought that was a fantastic example of that, and and how his skill came to bear at the right minute, at the right time, right second, right moment, I should say.
Absolutely.
It was just like, oh, there's the opening. Oh wow, it's over. It was that fast.
So here's a really interesting thing about what's happened here. And again, we didn't compare notes ahead of time. We didn't plan this, but it seems that what you've identified and the people that you've identified and what I identified have dovetailed each step of the way. And I'm going to bring it home with this. Everyone has a role, right? And you just talked about Aaron. And so everyone has a role. You have to know your role, and you have to do your role, right? And it is the coach's job, big coach, assistant coaches, every coach, the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach and the coordinators, the quarterback coach, all of the coaches, right? So you've got the head coach, and then these assistant coaches and all the position coaches helping each of the players on the team, the team member, understand their role, making sure they do their job to the best of their ability. Some people are self-motivated. Some people have to be motivated by others. Some people you are dragging, kicking, and screaming.
Right.
Right? They've got a job, they're getting paid, and they're okay with that. In the end, everyone has a job to do. And if you don't do your job, something falls through the cracks, or someone else has to pick up the slack. And this everyone has a role. And you mentioned this, Aaron and the play at the end. There were lots of plays where Cincinnati was stopped in their progress towards the end zone. Lots of plays where the Rams were stopped in their progress towards the end zone, their progress towards a first down, right? There were big plays. We remember those, but it's all the little plays by the unsung heroes, so to speak, of the game, right? We remember the glory players. We remember the quarterbacks because they're involved on offense on every single play.
Sure.
We don't spend a lot of time thinking about the center unless the snap goes wrong, right? And we had one of those in the game. But everyone has a role. And you talked about, expert power and influence, and it's the way you carry yourself and the way you do your job that has a ripple effect onto the rest of the team that helps to bring about that culture of winning and keeping people's spirits up when things start to go the wrong way. You're marching towards the end zone and there's an interception, or the quarterback gets sacked, right? There are lots of people who are a part of making that happen, right? From offensive linemen who didn't protect the quarterback not getting out of the pocket, blitzes coming, all of these, moving parts. But everyone has a part to play regardless of what the outcome is. And you cannot be, and as much as I may sound like I know what I'm talking about on football, I don't. I'm not even going to try to pretend like I'm like some expert. So if I throw out the wrong positions in this example, forgive me. That's my disclaimer. So if you've got a tight end who all of a sudden starts to do the work of the cornerback, not the quarterback, the cornerback, right? If they start doing that, then you introduce confusion, right? And opportunities for miscommunication. And what happens when you've got miscommunication? You start to break trust, right? And you mentioned earlier that a team is not a group. A team is it is a group, but of people who are focused on the same goal,
right,
the same vision, where each person knows and understands their role as a part of that vision and then does their best to implement their part. They're not doing other people's parts. You don't have the defense running out on somebody on the defensive line, running out on the field, trying to catch a ball that's tossed from the quarterback. That's not their role. And they go largely, unless you're a fan of the team or they're doing something really spectacular, like they have, 40 sacks in a season, you're probably not going to know those people's names.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't mean that their contribution to the team is any less important or valuable. And one of the things that you have to do as a leader is to help the people on your team understand that their contribution is just as valuable as the people who are, the people out front, the spokespeople, the people who show up on television or whatever it is, right? The people who are given roles, high profile roles in your organization. other people, the people who don't have that, they should not feel bad about that. They should understand that without them, those people don't get to do the job that they do. So they're just as important. And that's one of the things that I recognize that happens in sport, team sports in particular, is always on display, that when people are doing their job, it matters. And I will just bring up another example out of basketball. We talked about this offline last week around the time of the trade deadline for basketball, right? And we talked about, I think we talked about Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, we did.
And he seems to me in the moment to be someone who doesn't understand what his role is on his team, right? And I'm watching the team sort of do its thing, and I'm not quite clear what that thing is, as opposed to watching the Suns, right? Where everyone seems to really understand what their role is. The five guys that are on the floor at any particular time on the Suns, they seem to understand what they're doing, where they're going. And it may look like chaos, but they seem to know where everybody is and what they're doing. And I'm watching the Lakers, and last night I'm watching, and I asked my husband, it's like, why is he just standing there? I'm like, dude, why are you just standing there? So the point is, everyone has a role. You need to know what your role is. And being an unsung hero is not a bad thing, right?
Not at all.
The team cannot win without your contribution. Your company, your department, the organization as a whole cannot win without the contribution of each and every person that is there. And if it can win without you, it's a position that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, but yeah, and I will say this, and I'm gonna just add to what you said. Being an unsung hero is not a bad thing, but your leader should find a reason to sing your praises, right?
Absolutely.
Because those little things, they mean so much, and sometimes they go, it always, I don't want to say I get a chuckle out of it, because I'm not a big fan of Schadenfreude, I don't like to do that. But when I see somebody on a team that is underappreciated, whether it's in sports or in, a business, and they leave, and then the person that was leading them realizes that they were really important, that always goes, that's on you. Right?
Yes.
That's on the leader, because they should have known, the contribution this person was making prior to them leaving. And sometimes that happens. Really should know, and they find a reason to sing that person's praises, because their job matters.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw in, I know we're talking about Super Bowl in football, but I really know basketball better than disclaimer, not a basketball expert either, but I do know basketball better than football. And to your point, Andrew Wiggins, who's on the Warriors, who, if I'm getting my facts right, was the number one draft pick a few years back, sort of didn't live up to people's expectations of what a number one draft pick should be, ends up at the Warriors, and he is now an all-star. Right? And so the point is, where he was, and it wasn't like he said, oh, I'm leaving, wherever he was, Timberwolves, I think. It's not that he said, oh, I'm leaving. He ends up at the Warriors, but it is a system that appreciates what he brings to the table in a way that allows him to fit in that he didn't in the prior situation. And so to Robert's point, it's your job as a leader to bring that out of your people.
Yeah.
And whether they are starters, they come off the bench, they rarely ever see any play time, and they're ultimately are there to help with, practice, right? They're still awesome players, great talented players, whether they start or are coming off the bench. Their role is something else. Help them understand how that helps the team be a better team.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll just throw this last little basketball kudo out there. My husband is a former NBA player. And so he was a second round pick. He played on a couple of different teams in the NBA, came off the bench, but he had a role.
Mm-hmm.
He had a role, and we've talked about that and the contribution that role players play in the makeup of a team and its success.
Absolutely.
And it is the coach's job, as you said, to make sure they understand how they fit in, and it makes a difference. So,
yeah, great. Those are great words.
Awesome. So that was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was.
We'll have to do that with something else. The Bolshoi ballet or something. We'll pick something else.
Something I don't really pay attention to. Okay.
Something in the Olympics or whatever.
Okay.
But no,
Curling.
it was curling. Yes. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But it was fun, and I thank you for interrupting your entertainment and watching the Super Bowl to come up with your fantastic list.
Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me. Thank you for watching and indulging us. If you had any leadership lessons that you observed in the Super Bowl that you'd like to share, we'd like to see them in the comments. And if you have a topic you'd like for us to cover in the future, please drop us a line. We would love to cover those topics for you. And if there's anything we can do to help with coaching or consulting, please reach out to us. As I mentioned at the beginning, Robert's an extraordinary executive coach, and together we do organizational and leadership development consulting. So we're here and available to you. If we can do anything to help, just reach out. And you can catch us here on the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond, every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And we look forward to seeing you next time. So take care.